Welcome back. With me now is Lord Moynihan, businessman and venture capitalist. Lovely to see you this morning. You've cycled here, which is very environmentally friendly, John.
And wonderful on a lovely day like this.
Indeed.
No doubt thanks to global warming.
Possibly, but you're trying to counteract it in your own small way. Yes. Can we please, I just had an interesting discussion with Darren Jones, who was previously Rachel Reeves's right-hand man, now he's Keir Starmer's right-hand man, and he was having a go at me for having a go at some of these measures that she's introduced for the summer, free bus rides for children, money off museum and Alton Towers trips and all the rest of it, saying, you know, it's all very well for you as a wealthy commentator to start taking the mickey out of these policies, but actually they're very serious little changes that can help families. Yeah. My only point was, look, I'm sorry, Mr. Jones, but I'm not sure they actually touch the sides. Even if you were to take a bus in the summer to one of these attractions and had a small amount of money off, everything, as any parent knows, no matter how much they earn, but particularly those on low income, everything is so expensive, John, because inflation is so high.
Exactly. And in fact, you're right to say these are all fairly trivial things. But the main point is looking at the long term, what they've done already in the first 2 years, the utter incoherence of their approach. So they've increased NIC.
Yes.
They've increased the minimum wage. So now employers can't afford to hire people. So now lots of people are unemployed who would have had a job if it hadn't been for what they did. And now they say, never mind, you're a bit unemployed, but we'll take a bit off what it costs you to go to the zoo this summer. Now, for a start, if they've got the money to give away to take it off what they're going to go to the zoo with, then why did they increase the tax in the first place?
Yes.
And vice versa. But the whole point is people want jobs. They don't want visits to the zoo in lieu of having a job.
No.
So it's completely incoherent.
With regard to inflation, obviously we've got this relatively good, tentative, fingers crossed news from Donald Trump on Truth Social that he's close to signing a deal with Iran. The Strait of Hormuz may reopen. Does that mean magically, John, that suddenly inflation is going to tumble down to the Bank of England's new target rate of 2%?
Well, of course, that's the bias of your question. You know exactly. No, of course, it doesn't mean that inflation will come down. It'll continue for some time. But let's not forget that they've shown over and over again that inflation is primarily, almost totally, a monetary phenomenon. If you release lots of money into the economy, then inflation goes up.
Are you talking about quantitative easing there? What are you talking about?
Well, that was the original route, was via quantitative easing. The Bank of England has sort of given up on that right now. But instead, we are now borrowing lots and lots of money. And we had this month to borrow many billions more than had been forecasted. And that is going to go on because as unemployment goes up, taxes received comes down, and therefore we haven't got the money that we thought we would have, which was all inevitable. And it's what you said and what I said 2 years ago when they started doing this sort of thing. So inflation is going to continue until they can bring down the money supply. And they can only bring down the money supply by having an economy that does actually achieve growth instead of talking about achieving growth, which is what they do.
Well, the Labour government was last week celebrating a surprise 0.6% rise in the last quarter. I mean, OK, listen, these are all very low levels of growth. You don't really want any growth figures starting with a zero. Having said that, credit where credit's due or not?
Well, I think we learned some quite important things from the first quarter, this 0.6 you're saying, which is that an economy, like any large group of people, is very different inside an overall look. And what you've certainly got, and for the last few days, the King's Road in London has been heaving.
Right.
Now, why is this? It's because certain parts of the economy are doing quite well.
Yes.
First of all, the lanyard classes. They've got their guaranteed salaries, very good job security, gold-plated pensions, and they're not seeing any problem with the economy at all. But then, interestingly, you've got a whole bunch of parts of the economy that have benefited from Brexit. The City of London is doing very well, and they begged the government, please don't put us back in the EU. All the tech bros down in Shoreditch, what Doug McWilliams calls the flat white economy. They're doing extremely well, precisely because there are 3 EU laws that we haven't got, which allow tech businesses to thrive in this country, whereas they're falling flat in Europe. Genetic editing, we have the possibility of being the world's leader in gene editing and all sorts of beneficial things like a tomato that can cure cancer and so forth, which we wouldn't be allowed to do if we were in the EU. We won't be allowed to do it if Keir Starmer gets his reset, by the way.
Yes.
So there are lots of businesses, mostly around London, that are doing quite well. And also they've got all that money from COVID when they got the furlough, and people saved up a bunch of money and now they're spending it. So in London, it's fine. Outside London, awful, and people are just really fed up and angry. But that is where the 0.6% comes from. It's from our Brexit freedoms, amazingly.
Amazingly, okay.
Yes.
I mean, I'm sure there'll be Remainers that completely counteract that.
Facts don't lie.
Facts don't lie. And we've got this whole kind of 4% of GDP, it's fallen 4% since Brexit, and many economists debate that.
Oh, but no, by the way, they predict it'll fall by 2040 by 4%.
I think
it hasn't fallen at all right now.
Exports are up, and actually, at the end of the day, when you're the Chancellor on one hand, in saying in one breath we've got the best growth in the Eurozone, and then the other saying the only route to growth is to peg ourselves to the Eurozone, you're saying, yes. I think you might be contradicting yourself there. Can we talk about the gilt yields? Put simply, this is government borrowing. I'm intrigued by this figure of 5%, because under Liz Truss, who apparently crashed the economy and, was the devil incarnate economically, they were 4.7%.
Yes.
They're now averaging over 5 all the time. So is Labour, in terms of gilt yields, quotes, crashing the economy?
By their definition, yes. By what they said about Liz Truss, they're crashing it to a far greater degree than Liz did. Now, everybody gets confused about the long bond, the gilts, because it's got 2 measures. One is the yield, how much people who sell the bonds demand to get in terms of interest, and that's what you were talking about. Those are way above at any time during the Liz Truss regime. But the other is the value of the bond, because it works inversely. The higher the yield, the lower the value of the bond. And a bond that you could have bought at the beginning, you could have bought it in the Liz Truss period, at the worst time of the Liz Truss period, is now worth 10% less than at any time during Liz Truss's regime. So
why?
Why? Because they expect there'll be more inflation.
Yeah.
They expect that they're really worried about the British economy, which is looking awful. And of course, there's the leadership worries that they're threatening. Most of the Labour candidates to replace Keir Starmer are very left-wing, are saying they want to go back into the EU, are saying they want all sorts of left-wing policies. And basically you'll have this, I'm sorry to speak against my own party, but you're going to have the awful things that Rishi Sunak did, which were made much worse by what Keir Starmer did, which are going to be much worse by whatever Labour Prime Minister comes in. And we've still got 3 more years of Labour before we can get them out.
The sun's shining. Come on. Could you tell us something good for a change? Okay, so that's all looking pretty depressing. What do you think then will happen to inflation and interest rates over the course of the next, say, 6 months? You would have been gratified to have heard the Bank of England Governor, Andrew Bailey, say, I'm not sure Soviet-style supermarket price caps are a great idea, Rachel Reeves.
Yes, but they're putting caps on all sorts of things like rent, so they're still doing it. And putting price caps on things is an absolutely classic way of way station on the path towards pure socialism. Sorry to bore, but Venezuela, 1980, the richest, most prosperous, most lovely country in Latin America. Elegant, refined, educated people. None of them ever believed that their country could collapse. And yet, bit by bit, they moved all the way down into Cesar Chavez and expropriation and gangs and state violence and so forth. Now, a way station on that is price caps. If you say, oh, we're going to put a price cap on milk, on butter, on bread or whatever, then you develop shortages in those areas because nobody can afford to provide them at that price. And when you get shortages, you get complaints and riots and violence and state violence.
John, are you saying we're on the way to becoming Venezuela?
I don't know whether we are or not. I can certainly say that if a Labour government, particularly one in coalition with the Greens, gets in 3 years' time, then we'll have had 3 years of awfulness from now to then, and then we're going to have 5 years of awfulness. That is going to be really, really bad for this economy.
We should qualify this discussion by saying that you are an unashamed right-wing free market capitalist and indeed Tory supporter, but that is your economic view and you're entitled to it. Other people have other views. It's called socialism. We can weigh them up every episode, can't we, John? This is the fun of GB News.
Well, you heard me be rude about my own party just now.
True.
And I also have the wonderful fact on my side, which is that socialism, every time it's tried, doesn't work. Small point.
It's a small point, John, but one worth remembering. Right, we'll let you cycle on your way. Thank you back home, but thank you for joining me this Sunday morning.
Thank you, Camilla.
Good to see you.